Vice Chairman of the committee, will be chairing the meeting this evening. Other members of the committee present this evening are Councillors Jeremy Cottam, Paul Kander, Jane Langford, Jeff Mays, Justin Pemberton, Vicky Poole, Christopher Reid and Clive Taylor. The following officers are in attendance to advise and support the meeting. Simon Till, Team Manager for Development Management. Gareth Dowding, Principal Engineer, Traffic and Road Safety. Sian Cutts, Senior Planning Officer. Shaheen Kowsar, Senior Legal Advisor. Sam Chiverton, Slightly Damp Clerk. And Thomas Radbourne, who is our Zoom host for the evening. Before we start the meeting this evening, I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind all members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of others' views. If we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safe emergency exit route and please follow any instructions given by officers. The assembly point is in the car park of the Dolphin Public House, and if the lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and would await instructions from officers. We'll adjourn the meeting until such time as it's safe to proceed. Do members have any questions about the way in which this meeting will be conducted before we proceed? Marvellous, thank you very much. Let's move on then to the agenda. Item 1. Sam, do we have any apologies for this evening, please?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Alan Macro, with Councillor Christopher Reid attending as a sub. We've also had apologies from Councillor Ross McKinnon, with Councillor Jane Langford attending as a sub.
Thank you very much, and thank you for those that are substituting this evening. Moving on to item 2. I invite members to consider the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of August. If everybody's content, could I have a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Pemberton, thank you, and Councillor Kander, thank you. And if I could just take a vote by show of hands. Those for, any against, and those abstentions? Thank you very much. Okay, item 3. Do we have any declarations of interest that members wish to make this evening? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I think in connection with the application that we're considering today, I am a member of the ward in which this site is situated. I'm also the chairman of Tylehurst Parish Council, and I have been residents have contacted me in relation to this application. However, I come here with a completely open mind. We'll listen to the arguments for and against, and we'll vote accordingly. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Any others? There are not. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item on our agenda, then item 4, which is the substantive item this evening. For those of you new to the meeting, I'll briefly explain the procedure. Officers will present the application to committee, after which the following groups might wish to speak. There would be parish or town council representatives, parish in this case, objectors, supporters, the applicant or agent, and then ward members. Committee members will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification of the speakers, and then the committee will debate the item before determining, and then we'll ask questions for clarification of officers, and then we'll move on to committee debate before determining the application.
Thank you, Chairman. Just bear with me while I just share my screen. There we go. Right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong version. Right, got There we go. Right. So this is an application on land adjacent to Linnet Close. It's seeking permission for the erection of 4 two-bedroom semi-detached dwellings, including 2 parking spaces per dwelling, so 4 in total, vehicle turning area and new access onto City Road, private gardens and accessible green space to the rear of the site. The application is being brought to the Eastern Area Planning Committee as it was called in by the ward member, and it has also received more than 10 objections. The application is recommended for approval subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement to manage the open space. Members will be aware that the update sheet includes amendments and updates to the conditions and the heads of terms for that agreement. So here we have the application site. It's situated between City Road, here, City Road, Bitton Avenue and Linnet Close, and is adjacent to the bungalow at 187 City Road. This is excluded from the application site, but is owned by the applicant. This shows the application site. The 4 houses are proposed to be sited facing City Road itself, with the access point about here. And then the parking space for each dwelling, bin storage, cycle store, access and internal turning area. The open space is to the south of the site and can be accessed via Linnet Close. The plans show this will have a gate. It is proposed to landscape this area, and this will also be the area where the biodiversity net gain habitat area will be created. This is an area of 239 square metres. This land was historically used as a children's play area. This ended when the lease to Tilehurst Parish Council expired in 2006 and has been fenced off since then. Here we have the floor plans for the houses. They're 2 pairs of semi-detached houses, basically sort of handed a similar design for all 4 houses. These are the elevations, plots 1 and 2, floor plans for 3 and 4, and the elevations. And here we have a street scene and section viewed from City Road itself. And this just gives an indication of what it would look like. And this is from the design and access statement, which is more of an artist's impression, but it shows the removal of the fence line across the elevation on City Road, and the houses set back in line with the rear of the bungalow on City Road. The 2 pairs of houses, the elevations take design cues from the surrounding development dated from the 1960s and 70s. And then here we have some views. This is a view from City Road at present, looking across to, you can see the house adjacent on Linnet Close. This is a view kind of over the hedge line. You can see Bitton Close sort of in front of you, and to the right-hand side, Linnet Close on the right-hand side. This is a view within the site facing towards City Road, facing towards Bitton Avenue to the west, to the south also Bitton Avenue. And this land in the foreground consists of what the open space area will be. And this is the house to the east on Linnet Close, looking out from the site. Sorry, I'll come back to that one in a moment. So just moving on to the the consultation responses that we've received. Tilehurst Parish Council raised objections due to highway safety issues, overlooking exacerbation of drainage and sewerage problems, congestion, reduced parking at 187 City Road, displacement of wildlife, antisocial behaviour in the smaller green space. The highways required amended plans to overcome their initial concerns about visibility and parking for the existing dwellings. Once this information was satisfactorily agreed, then they raised no objections subject to conditions relating to the construction method statement, the submission of a construction method statement, the repositioning of the street light, removal of the bus stop, the provision of the access from City Road as first action of the development, provision of visibility displays, parking provision, EV charging points and cycle parking. Drainage engineers were consulted, and following the submission of amended drainage details, the council's drainage engineers have not raised any objections to the proposals, subject to a condition requiring further technical details of the surface water drainage to be approved. No objections were received from ecology, and no comments were received from the consultation with Thames Water, Countryside Team or Waste Management. Moving on to representations from the public. We've received representations from 18 contributors. These are all available on the website and summarised within the report. The main concerns are about drainage and flood risk, upkeep of the open space and preventing antisocial behaviour, fencing around the site, the lack of parking, highway safety and congestion on City Road, the density of the development, inadequate garden sizes, impact on neighbouring properties due to privacy, overshadowing, the height of the buildings affecting sunlight in adjacent gardens, that previous appeals on the site have been dismissed due to impact on amenity, access during the construction phase and disturbance at that stage, the green infrastructure being removed, it's a green buffer site, and being unsure about the dimensions for how the development will actually fit on the site. Moving on to our appraisal of the development. The application site is within the settlement boundary of the Eastern Urban Area, where policy SP1 says it will continue to be a focus for residential development. And this policy seeks to make the optimum use of land and achieve high quality design. The density of the development accords with the densities required by policy SP1. As previously alluded to, there have been previous objections on the site for residential development, the last being in 2010, where the inspector dismissed the appeal as it was considered that the site still had some amenity value despite not being used since 2006, and even if it wasn't made available for public access. However, since that time, there have been changes to planning policies with the introduction of the NPPF and subsequent updates to it, and the adoption of the local plan review policies earlier this year. This site, it's important to remember, has not been used as a play area for 19 years. It is considered that overall this is a suitable site and is supported in principle for housing development. There is an area of open space provided within the site as part of the development, which will provide open biodiversity benefits. It is open space and the applicant is willing for this to be publicly accessible. However, I will address this in more detail later. Overall, it is considered that the previous reasons for dismissing the appeal have been overcome by the greater need for more houses to be built in sustainable locations. Moving to the design and impact on character of the area, it's considered that the modest scale of the development, being 4 two-bedroom houses, and its design and siting are appropriate to the location, as I showed on these slides here. It will be set back from City Road, and the close boarded fence will be replaced by a low wall and a more appearance, removing the visually harsh appearance of the fence, close boarded fence. There isn't a uniform building line within City Road, and there is a mixture of ages and types of residential development with it. This section shows how it blends with the general topography of the site. And the use of contemporary materials is considered to be appropriate and reflects the different designs within this area over time. The list of conditions also requires that a schedule of the exact materials will be submitted for approval. There have been objections raised about the impact on the privacy of adjoining dwellings. The houses are sited so that 21-metre separation distance between facing windows is exceeded. An indicative boundary plan was submitted with the application. However, following the site visit, this has been removed from the list of approved plans as shown in the update sheet, as the applicant is willing to submit a more detailed plan indicating fencing between the site and 2 Linnet Close with a fence to increase the level of privacy at garden level. And so an updated condition has been added to the update sheet. The report also addresses the issue of sunlight and daylight to 187 City Road and 2 Linnet Close, which are the closest properties. I'm just whiz through the slide. Oops, I've gone too far. Sorry, bear with me. Right. Too fast. Okay, so here we look at the relationship with the neighbours. Yes, there was an issue of sunlight and daylight to 187 City Road and 2 Linnet Close. You see my little cursor here. So here's City Road. Here's the house at Linnet Close. The applicant submitted additional information which demonstrated that the nearest house wouldn't be harmful to 187 City Road. If you see here, this is Linnet Close at the bottom of the screen. And you'll see from the orientation of the houses, it's at an angle. If we were to take the 45-degree line from the back of the house, which goes like this, the proposed house doesn't cross it. So there'll be no significant loss of sunlight and daylight to the habitable rooms of Linnet Close. There will be some shadowing in the garden, but this house is to the northwest of Linnet Close. So any shadowing will be in the late afternoon, early evening, and only really to the garden areas. Again, addressing the impact on the neighbouring properties, there are conditions proposed to minimise the impacts during construction, with the requirement for a construction method statement to be approved and conditions limiting the hours of work during the construction phase. Policy DM30 also requires that certain standards are met for the living conditions within the proposed houses, to do with sufficient room sizes, light to habitable rooms and garden sizes, and the proposed plans meet with all these criteria. Moving on to highway safety, following the receipt of amended plans and details of the parking at 187 City Road, Highways has raised no objections. My colleague, Mr. Dowden, can address these matters further. Moving on to drainage, whilst there were objections from residents raised about flooding issues and sewage issues, the drainage engineers have not raised any objections to the proposals once amended details were submitted. and these have demonstrated that sustainable drainage can be provided to ensure that the runoff is at greenfield rates. So with the submission, with the requirement for a condition to secure approval of these technical details, there are no objections. Thames Water, who are the sewage undertakers, have not commented on the application. No objections have been received from the council's ecologist, subject to conditions and the provision of the biodiversity gain plan. As referred to before, the open space will be providing the additional habitat required to meet biodiversity net gain requirements. As you may be aware, the local plan review has introduced new policies to do with climate change and sustainable construction standards. It's considered these requirements can be met through conditions, and the update sheet has amended these conditions for when we require these details to be submitted, and this will be before slab level rather than the commencement of development. Now moving to the provision of the open space. The area of the 239 square metres to the south of the site is proposed to be made available as public open space. This is to overcome in part the previous reason for refusal and to provide wider public benefit. However, we are aware of the concerns about antisocial behaviour. At the site meeting, it was discussed about whether it be gated, and the plans do show that there do indicate gates to the site. However, the new boundary plan condition will secure these details and require further approval. The applicant has indicated that they're willing to work with a parish council or other public body to make this space publicly available, and the Section 106 agreement would secure this. However, the update sheet also revises the heads of terms so that if a public body is not able to take on the land, it can be made available to a management company. And then if this is not possible, then the agreement will ensure that it is maintained as a habitat area only, with access for maintenance from time to time as required by the Habitat Management Plan. So members, in conclusion, the site is within an area where policies SP1 and SP3 support residential development in principle. Whilst the site was previously available as public open space, given that it's not been available for 19 years, this is given very limited weight against the development. The proposal will make a small contribution to the housing land supply, and there is also the benefit to the public of the site being maintained at the habitat area, which can be made available for public use subject to Section 106 agreement. Taking the development plan together as a whole and the urgent need to provide more houses, this need outweighs the loss of the amenity land, and the proposals are considered to accord with the development plan as a whole, and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions as set out in the officer's report and as amended in the update sheet, and subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Cutts. Mr Dowling, anything you'd like to add at this stage?
No, I haven't. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you indeed, sir. Let's move on now to our speakers on the application this evening. As hopefully you are all aware, you'll have 5 minutes for each section of speakers. If there are more than one of you to speak, then that will be shared between you, and we can give warnings a minute before the end of your time if that's helpful, or split if you need them to be. Let's start then by going to our parish representative for Tyler's Parish Council, as Councillor Joanne Stewart. Please do begin when you're ready. That's better.
Thank you. Can you hear me, all members? Lovely. So my name is Joanne Stewart, and I'm here to represent the views of Tylehurst Parish Council as Vice Chair. Tylehurst Parish Council objects to the proposed application because, and some of this you will have already heard, Vehicle access to the proposed new properties would have poor visibility and would be close to a very busy bus stop on the opposite side of the road. The entry and exit point for this proposed site is almost directly opposite two other properties with similar access and exit points onto City Road, as well as Brian Dowding Court and access for HGVs just a little further along at the Travis Perkins site. The proposed new properties would overlook neighbouring properties, which we've heard, which is not something that's previously been an issue for the residents in Linnet Close as an example. We've just heard about sunlight and shade in the garden, for example, at number 2 Linnet Close. I would just like to say you cannot underestimate how that can harm your enjoyment of your garden space if during the late afternoon and evening you have shade and sunlight is blocked. I have that situation in my own garden. It also means that some areas of the garden will not grow certain types of flowers, vegetation, etc., because of the lack of sunlight. There are issues with drainage and sewage systems, which would be exacerbated by adding 4 new properties into such a small area, which is already heavily populated around the site. The potential for flooding would be increased, and we already have experienced several instances of flooding on City Road in the last few years when we have had significant downpours in particular. I think it's disappointing that Thames Water have not made a comment, particularly because when we've called them out to address those flooding issues, they have not been particularly helpful in understanding why it's caused. Traffic congestion on City Road would be worsened, particularly at school drop-off and pick-up times. If you were to visit City Road at these times, you would see that many people choose to stop in places and park on double yellow lines, blocking driveway access. We get many complaints about that, and sometimes preventing buses from being able to move safely through. City Road, if you know and live in the area, is an extremely busy thoroughfare, allowing access to 2 primary schools and onward to Little Heath School, as well as access to Hildens Drive's shops and businesses and homes. There is concern, as was mentioned, at the decreased number of parking spaces at the neighbouring property and whether this could increase the risk of on-street parking to add to this situation. The majority, I'm onto the long-term green space, or the green space and the amenity space. So the majority of the existing long-term green space would be lost. Well, you'll have seen in pictures that actually it looks like a wasteland. It hasn't. That has only happened in recent times. Trees have been removed. Those trees will have had habitat for animals, birds and insects. So now it just looks like a bit of scrub wasteland that nobody wants. I just want to point that out. We are lucky in this part of Tilehurst to have some beautiful wildlife areas and green spaces, such as Pinson's Hill and Turnham's Farm Park, just further up the road. To our knowledge, another small green space, as is being proposed, is not exactly something that the residents have been asking for from our parish council. And finally, just a piece about the proposed smaller green space. And we've heard about the concern about the risk of antisocial behaviour. We already experience this in a similar small green park within the parish, where it is surrounded by housing
1 minute remaining.
and enclosed. Thank you, and enclosed, and therefore has unfortunately an opportunity for people to get up to things in a nice enclosed space. So a gated access may be a good idea, but that does mean that it also needs somebody to be able to lock it. I'm going to close there and just ask if anybody, through you, Chair, would like to ask any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Members, any questions? Councillor Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Stewart, for your presentation. You mentioned that the site at the minute is currently a bit of a wasteland. I used to live in Tilehurst many, many moons ago, and I didn't really go down necessarily that road very much, but I always remember it being a little bit more open. Has there been any developments or changes significantly over the last couple of years that we may wish to know about, or any restrictions on site that may have impacted residents' enjoyment?
So I don't think it's been enjoyed by residents for quite a number of years. And actually, the residents that are here tonight will probably be able to tell you much better than I. I just do know that very recently we've seen trees have disappeared, and actually all you need to do is look at Google Maps. And 2017 you could certainly see trees, and only quite recently you could also see them, and now they are definitely no longer there. It does look like somebody has cleared the land in preparation for whatever is going to take place. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pemberton, I think I saw your hand go up next.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and thank you as well, Councillor Stewart, for your presentation. You mentioned local schools and the City Road being used as a thoroughfare, and the inference as well that parents will often park inconsiderately, which is a well-known problem. So I'm just wondering, which schools are you referring to, and where are you suggesting at the moment, relevant to the application that we're considering tonight, that parents park inappropriately and will be made worse if we approve this?
So in particular, you may be aware Springfield Primary School has a Safer Street scheme now where it is between certain times in the morning and afternoon, vehicular access is not allowed. So City Road has become the unfortunate place for that traffic to move on to. With all the different properties, and there is a local pub as well that is suffering from people just parking. I've been and stood on City Road to at in particular school pickup time to see what happens, and I have seen cars park along almost as far as this site, not quite. My concern is that they are willing to park along, and if you ever drive along that road, you have to stop and pull in at many points because those houses also are parking on street. So despite the fact that and I'd just like to say, I think we talked about there being 4 parking spaces on this property at this new site. I think actually it's 8 because there's 2 per dwelling. That still only allows for 2 cars per house. If you have visitors, where are those people going to park? So all of that is a concern, I think, and I completely agree. It's one of those biggest things we probably have in all of our parishes and wards. How do we make sure that our children are safe, that people can still use the roads, and try and encourage people not to drive their children to school?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-on from that before we move on to the next one. In terms of residents parking on street, are you talking sort of generically or at the same kind of times? Because I'm just a quick look on Google Maps. The north side of City Road looks like it's restricted, and the south side looks like it's restricted during the day. So are you saying that residents regularly park their cars on the street outside of those restricted hours?
Absolutely.
Right.
I can drive through at any time of day and there is always someone parking there.
Okay, thank you. Any others, members? Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I can see on Google Maps that there used to be some very big trees with large canopies on that site. And actually the site looks like it's relatively well kept on Google Maps. Just moving on to the community space, and apologies if it has been picked up elsewhere in the conversation presentation, but as Tilehurst Parish Council, have they been approached about maintenance cost of this community space? Have they been asked whether there would be funding for such available, and whether if this was to go ahead, who would be paying for it?
All very good questions. So I'm not party to those conversations that may have already taken place. I believe that Tilehurst Parish Council have said we will consider what our next actions would be should this application be approved. I have seen some indicative costings today, which I couldn't share with you because I don't have them to hand, for the other park that I mentioned in Tilehurst Parish Council and how much that costs us currently to maintain. This would be a smaller site, but the other site is not there from a biodiversity net gain situation. It's a park. So that's a very different maintenance and expertise and requirement. So I think Tylehurst Parish Council will have to think very seriously about, one, whether they can budget for it, and two, whether it's actually practical for us to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Mays, I had you next.
Yeah, it is working, that's right. Councillor Stewart, good evening.
Good evening.
You mentioned Thames Water.
Oh, I knew you'd pick this up.
Yeah, I'm bound to, aren't I? You said that it floods elsewhere, but Thames Water haven't defined what is the cause of that flooding, whether it's rainfall or whether it's sewage. If it's sewage, that indicates that the main foul drain in that area is under capacity, and so the 4 extra houses we have here would make that worse, presumably. If it's due to just to rainfall falling on the road surface, then that would indicate that the surface water drainage is inadequate, and the SUDS work that we're proposing in this proposal here would presumably not make that worse, but it would not make it any better. So as a question, can you say whether the sewage that you have heard about, is that due to sewage or is it just rainwater?
As far as I'm aware, it's rainwater. It has the reason it's been raised is because there was a concern that it was actually going to flood a resident's house. So it's one of those occasions where you can't plan for it, but we are seeing more and more of those types of sudden downpours where a huge amount of rain will come down. And I wasn't involved in the conversations with Thames Water directly, but I know that it took an awful long time to get any sort of understanding, and I'm not even sure that we've got a resolution. It feels a little bit like we're waiting for the next downpour to see what happens.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Kander.
Good evening, Councillor Stewart. Thanks again.
I wasn't expecting all these questions.
Just quickly, you mentioned the bus stop, and I may need to ask the officers later on when we do officers' questions, but in the text, it seems to imply the bus stop is no longer used, and as part of this, if it goes through, then all of that stuff will be removed, the signposts and everything like that. Is it your understanding there is a working and used bus stop or not?
There is, but it's across the other side of the road.
So there's 2 bus stops, one's unused?
Yes, and I think when the parish council first objected, it wasn't clear whether the one that's adjacent to the proposed site was being used. I've actually drove up there yesterday to check, and it's not being used. But what it does mean is that the bus route was changed. So now the bus does a sort of a circular route. So there's only that one stop, and it's across the road from the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that it, members? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you.
You may seat. Let's move on to our next listed speaker then. We move on to objectors, and we have Carly Baldwin. Carly, if you'd like to come forward, please. Again, as with the last, I'll ask Sam to give you a notification when there's a minute left to go on your 5. Okay, begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me all? Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Carly Baldwin and I live near City Road. I'm speaking on behalf of local residents to object to this application for 4 semi-detached houses on the land adjacent to Linnet Close. My objections focus on 5 key issues: highway safety, loss and mismanagement of green space, overshadowing and harm to neighbours, inadequate sewage infrastructure, and the history of previous refusals for this site. Number 1, highway safety and congestion. City Road is already under immense pressure. During school drop-off and pick-up, it becomes chaotic because the council's own Safer School Streets scheme diverts traffic from the nearby primary school directly onto City Road. Residents witness illegal parking, vehicles mounting pavements and blocked sightlines daily. Visibility is particularly poor for children crossing between parked cars. The situation is now so dangerous that many of us genuinely fear it is only a matter of time before there is a serious, potentially fatal accident. Introducing a new entrance and exit onto this stretch of road will add turning traffic precisely at the busiest and most hazardous time of the day. Combined with the large articulated lorries delivering daily to Travis Perkins, this development would make an already unsafe situation far worse. Under paragraph 116 of the MPPF, permission should be refused where the cumulative impact on safety is severe, which in this case it clearly is. Number 2, loss and poor management of green space. This small but important area of green space has long served as a buffer and breathing space for residents. The proposal reduces it to a small, ill-defined, publicly accessible area, yet no authority has agreed to maintain or manage it. Both West Berkshire Council and Tylehurst Parish Council have declined adoption, meaning it would likely fall to a private management company. Drawing on my professional background, I see firsthand how unmanaged, poorly lit patches of land quickly become hotspots for antisocial behaviour. Gatherings, littering, noise and vandalism, but to name a few, particularly where there is no clear ownership or community oversight. That will have a huge impact on residents, especially the elderly and more vulnerable people who already feel anxious about local safety. This risk has not been adequately considered in the officer's report, yet it is entirely foreseeable. Policy SP10 of the local plan requires that the new development should enhance community safety and create well-managed open space. This proposal fails to do either. Number 3, overshadowing and harm to neighbours. The proposed houses are tall and positioned close to existing homes, particularly 2 Linnet Close and 187 City Road. They will block natural light, overshadow gardens and reduce privacy, creating an oppressive and enclosed environment that will affect residents' well-being. Under policy DM30, development must not cause a harmful loss of daylight or outlook. This one does. Number 4, inadequate and failing sewage infrastructure. The estate was built in 1965 and the drains are believed to be old bitumen pipes already deteriorating. Since then, additional homes, particularly those along Bitton Avenue, have increased the load on this fragile system. Thames Water has failed to respond to this consultation despite being the statutory authority. Their silence is troubling given their well-documented operational problems and discussions of possible nationalisation. Residents regularly experience backing up of foul waste and repeated emergency works. Thames Water is constantly digging up City Road and neighbouring streets to repair the same failing pipes, clear evidence that the infrastructure is already under severe pressure. Adding more dwellings will only make that worse. Policy DM7 requires that adequate capacity is proven before approval, and the evidence simply isn't there. Number 5, previous refusals and worsening conditions. This site has a clear history of refusals and dismissed appeals, largely on the grounds of amenity and infrastructure concerns. Little has changed since those decisions. In fact, conditions have worsened. Traffic on the estate has increased as more adult children remain living at home due to the cost of living crisis, meaning more cars per household.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you, and greater congestion. If the site was unsuitable before, it is even less appropriate now. In conclusion, this proposal fails across multiple fronts. It exasperates unsafe highway conditions where a serious accident feels inevitable. It destroys valued green space that will become a focus for antisocial behaviour. It harms neighbouring homes through overshadowing. It overloads a failing sewage network constantly under repair, and it ignores a long record of refusals. Once this land is built on, it cannot be undone. I therefore respectfully urge the committee to refuse this application or at least defer it until full and independent assessments of traffic, drainage and community impact are completed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions, please? Councillor Mays.
Thank you. Well done. You mentioned that Thames Water have got pitch fibre pipe or bitumen pipe in the system. That tends to collapse.
Correct.
And it was mainly buildings in the 60s and 70s that use that material. Is it confirmed, or can you confirm that it is that material that's causing the problem?
I can't answer that question. This is only what I've discovered through speaking to residents that have lived in the estate since it's been there.
Okay. I'll take it as read. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Mays. Anybody else? No? Was that a hand or not a hand?
I'm tempted to ask a question, Chair, but I don't know how to phrase it. Can you give me just 2 moments to phrase it in my head?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. That was very respectful with my ADHD. Thank you for your presentation, Miss.
Thank you.
I was at the site visit with you and some of your neighbours last week, and one of the comments that I heard your neighbour say was about what was it? It was about antisocial behaviour, and I didn't hear any comment of that in your presentation this evening. I made a quick note as I was running through the items that you were discussing, and I may have missed it. Forgive me. What is the site currently used for in terms of antisocial behaviour, and what is the nature of your concern? Should this be changed to a park?
So at present, it is a quiet close and the site is not used. There was a lot of animals in the area, in the green space, and obviously a lot of the trees have been cut down now. So it is just like wasteland, scrubland, but there are animals in there. My concerns around antisocial behaviour, lots of properties were back onto that green space. If it is accessible to the public, my concerns are around young people using it for maybe and being loud, drug dealing. We do get a lot of young people riding through the estate on Surrons, which are the illegal electric bikes. And my concern is that once they know that this land is available, that it will be used by them predominantly. Yes.
Okay, does that answer the question for you?
Thank you, Chair. It does. I'll have a question for the officers when we come to that point about TVP's response.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pemberton?
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask a question, but now that Councillor Poole has, just playing devil's advocate for a moment, would you also accept on the other side of that if nothing happens to that piece of land, it will just continue to deteriorate with nothing being used on it?
It's been like that for many years, and residents have no issues with it being like that. It's been used by animals and things like that. So it's just a nice area of green space that residents have no issues with it being like that. And it's just nice to have that there as it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kander?
Hi. So a couple of questions. The land currently, is it currently fenced in your opinion, and has it secured?
Parts of it are fenced, I believe. Yeah, it backs onto a lot of people's property. So some of it has fencing.
And I had another question. That inspiration came to me and I've instantly forgot it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any further questions? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to the agent, Rebecca Hode. Thomas, I've got a Zoom attendance on this.
They are present. I'm just promoting them to a panelist.
Lovely, thank you. If you can let me know when that's happened.
They are joining presently.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Rebecca. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you very much indeed. You probably know the details unless you've got 5 minutes, and we'll get the clerk to give you a warning at 1 minute to go.
Great, thank you.
Ready?
Hello. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Hode, speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposal for 4 new 2-bedroom homes at land at Linnet Close. The site is privately owned, fenced off, and has been inaccessible to the public for a considerable number of years. It is not designated as open space in any adopted or emerging local plan. This proposal therefore brings an unused piece of land back into beneficial use, delivering much needed homes within the settlement boundary in a sustainable location. The planning officer has confirmed the principle of development is acceptable. The design follows the quality design SPD, reflecting local character through appropriate scale, height, and materials. All homes exceed national space and garden standards. At the site visit prior to committee, some residents raised concerns about the open space at the rear in terms of public access. To be clear, the applicant has listened to these concerns and as such has proposed a flexible approach to the open space throughout the course of the application. The applicant has offered this open space to the Parish Council and they have indicated that they are waiting for the outcome of the planning application before making a decision on the open space. If the parish decide not to take the space, then the applicant has offered to manage the area by appointing a private management company. We have also offered and agreed with the planning officer that the open space could otherwise be restricted from public access and retained solely for biodiversity and visual amenity purposes, with maintenance carried out in accordance with a habitat management plan, which is to be secured by condition. A planning obligation to capture these offers has been proposed as set out in the members' update. This ensures flexibility, proper stewardship, and biodiversity benefits. During the site visit, residents' concerns, in particular those at number 2 Linnet Close, were noted in terms of boundary treatment. As such, we have listened to these concerns and have agreed a condition requiring approval of all boundary treatment details before occupation, ensuring privacy and amenity for existing and future residents. Residents also had concerns in terms of residential amenity impacts, including daylight and sunlight queries. We remain comfortable that the scheme is acceptable in planning terms as reflected in the officer's assessment. In summary, the proposal contributes to West Berkshire's housing supply, improves the city road frontage by removing the existing harsh boundary treatment with soft landscaping and well-designed homes, as demonstrated by the visual. It delivers biodiversity net gains of over 12% for habitat and nearly 200% for hedgerows. It aligns fully with the NPPF's presumption in favour of sustainable development. Access arrangements have been revised in consultation with the Highways Authority, who have confirmed no objections, including in relation to parking provision for both existing and future residents, and did not raise any objections in relation to visitor spaces. The quantum proposed is considered sufficient for 4 two-bedroom homes and compliant with standards. Drainage matters have been addressed to the satisfaction of the council's engineer, and it is confirmed that the site can be satisfactorily drained. Further details will be submitted as part of the condition application stage. The developer will be responsible and required in due course to obtain consent from Thames Water to discharge into their network. This is a separate planning regime as set out in the officer's report. To clarify, the 2 existing trees were removed at the front of the site as there was concern that it was causing subsidence to the existing bungalow. The trees were considered in the biodiversity net gain assessment, but were removed prior to the application. Thank you. But were removed prior to the application being submitted and therefore do not form part of the current application. In conclusion, the proposal responds positively to local feedback, transforms an unused site into a high-quality small housing development, and secures a long-term management plan for the open space. We respectfully ask members to support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, any questions? Councillor Langford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Rebecca, if I may. I'm looking at your side elevations. I believe that these narrow windows either overlook the stairwell or form bathroom windows. Are they frosted?
Yeah, the side windows are frosted. They're marked on the drawings as obscure glazing on the first floors.
Yeah. I can't see because it's tiny print and I couldn't quite see.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry. So my concern about these frosted windows, first of all, I'm pleased that they are obscure. Secondly, my concern was, well, what about the houses themselves overlooking each other? Because there's a narrow gap between the 2 sets of semi-detached houses.
Yeah, so the side windows, they would be serving either bathrooms or the stairwell of the houses. And so because they're glazed, they wouldn't be able to overlook each other from the gaps.
So would there be a condition that those windows were always made of obscure glass?
Yes, I believe there is a condition. If I can just have a quick look at the suggested conditions. But if there isn't, then we can certainly discuss adding one. I mean, the condition 2 refers to approved plans, and that has the those plans secured within that, so the side windows would be secured.
Yeah, I think that's quite important, especially for the people who live on the corner of City Road, and I think it's called Betton Avenue, because windows will look straight into their gardens. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Those restrictions are important, seems to me.
Yes. Yeah, definitely agreed. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And the second question I wanted to ask you, if I may, Mr. Chair, was to do with antisocial behaviour, because I do think that is a real issue. But you seem to have dealt with that in making other provision for that piece of land. Would you consider that piece of land being jointly owned by the 4 houses and managed by the 4 houses?
It's not something we've discussed with the planning officer. The applicants proposed 3 separate scenarios to try and remain quite flexible on this occasion. And we were initially hoping that we may be able to gift it to the parish. We could certainly discuss with Sian about introducing an additional 4th scenario within the obligation if that's what the committee would like to see.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Langford. There's a couple of notes there for officers. Councillor Mays, I had your hand next.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, again. Ms. Hode, can you confirm, and I can't read it on my drawing because it's printed at A4, this actual space between the 2 blocks of semi-detached houses that you're providing or producing design for, is that 1.5 metres, the space between the 2? The alley between the 2 blocks?
Yes, I believe so. Let me just zoom in as well on the plans.
Have you got? I can't read it on mine. I need a very good magnifying glass.
That's okay. Let me just get this up as well.
I saw it on one of the drawings, but I can't.
If you look at this page, it says 1.5, that house.
Thank you, Councillor Cotton. What page is that? Is it numbered?
Page 46.
Page 46. It says 1.5 metres. Members.
Yes.
Yeah, 1.5.
Thank you, Councillor Cotton.
That to me seems extremely narrow when you need to maintain the gables of both these houses. You haven't got much for space for a ladder or anything like that. But another point I'd like to raise is the roofing material. I think you've discussed in the text that it's made of zinc. Is that zinc sheet or?
I believe so. If I just get it up as well. So I believe it's zinc sheet, but materials would be secured via condition. So it's something that we can, if the committee has a preference, it's something we can take away and have a look at as part of the condition discharge stage.
Okay, I'll leave that with you, and I'll discuss it with the officers later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Taylor was next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. The first one concerns the heads of terms for the Section 106 agreement, and I'm referring to the paper that I think was only issued yesterday. The third, where it says thirdly restricted from public access. Sorry, are we getting some into? Should I carry on? Yeah, where it says within public access, solely for biodiversity. Okay. Yeah, my question. Is that better? Okay. Yeah, it concerns the third clause under the heads of terms on the latest paper that was issued, the update report. And I just wondered if you could clarify that where it refers to maintenance carried out periodically in accordance with the habitat management plan. I'm trying to understand who would actually be carrying out that work.
Sorry, I was muted. I couldn't unmute myself then. So
I'm going to jump in. Sorry, just been advised that that's more of a question for officers to pick up as it's the S106, Councillor Taylor.
Okay, so I can come back to
pick that up on the next one.
Come back to that one.
Okay, thank
later. Yeah, I do have another question. You made reference to the removal of trees, and I think that came up in one or two of some of the earlier comments. I'd just like to understand that the trees that were removed, were they tree preservation ordered trees, i.e. did they have TPOs? And when they were removed, was permission obtained to do so?
So the trees were removed before we submitted the application, and they weren't TPO'd. And I don't believe they needed permission to remove them because they were on private land.
Okay.
Just to clarify, we included the trees within the biodiversity net gain assessment because of it needing to consider land back. I've forgotten all of my terminology. The baseline study, so it had to consider it from a few years ago. But otherwise, it was they were removed before the application was submitted.
Okay, I'm not going to pursue that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I'm curious, why are the houses set back from the road? Because a lot of the other properties on the street have drive on, drive off instead of having gardens. And I'm just trying to understand the rationale for the layout as it stands.
Yeah, sure. It was considered to be safer in terms of highway impacts to have an area where cars could pull into the kind of shared driveway and could exit the site within forward gear by turning on the site. So we carried out swept path analysis, tracking drawings to make sure that could happen. And in order to do that, we were required to set the houses back. And that in the officer's report, I think it acknowledges that there is no set building line within the area. So we felt that was the best and safest kind of option for this site.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any further questions? There are none. Okay, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. We'll move on from there.
Thank you.
Ward members next. Are you both speaking? Is it just one of you speaking? Just Councillor Taylor. Okay, you know the rules. 5 minutes. Can indeed.
Okay, I'll apologise in advance if I'm repeating things that have already been said, but I will read out what I've what I've written in advance here. I live on the Birds Estate where this proposed development site is situated, and drive or walk past the site every day of the week and know many of the residents living in this area who I represent as one of their councillors. There is clearly considerable concern at this development, as 18 objections would suggest, along with the objections from Tylehurst Parish Council. And from the size of the crowd at the site visit last week, most of those objectors were present, further demonstrating the public concern. The properties immediately adjacent to the land have expressed concerns that their homes being overlooked and of loss of sunlight. Maintenance of fencing and borders with neighbours has been poor, giving rise to concerns as to how well the site would be maintained in future. Loss of amenity and green spaces of concern, and I note that all previous applications to build here have been refused following considerable opposition, as have all three appeals which were lost. The proposed public accessible space is of great concern due to the likelihood of antisocial behaviour and illegal activity, drug use and motorcycles, and this is no exaggeration. A nearby park owned by Tylehurst Parish Council off Foxcombe Way and Hildens Drive has exactly these problems in a similar location surrounded by housing, and we can only avoid these problems by locking the park overnight. I would strongly recommend that if this application is approved, that lockable gates are installed. I should add that I am surprised that Thames Valley Police were not consulted on this application. A further area of concern is that City Road has ongoing flood risk issues, particularly around the junction with Hildens Drive. And West Berkshire drainage engineers have in the past advised me of inadequate and too narrow drainage pipework in the road that will need upgrading. And that until this is done, some risk of road or even house flooding will exist. I have had to advise some houses to obtain sandbags. My concern here is that additional housing could worsen the drainage situation in the wider area as the current drainage cannot cope. There are concerns with parking and the general volume of traffic in this area. Bittern Avenue, which leads to Linnet Way, is the only road access to approximately 700 homes on both the Birds Estate and the Garstons Park home village. City Road, on where the new homes fronts would be, is the main access road to 2 primary schools and 1 secondary school, and has a very popular pub and the Travis Perkins Builders Yard, both nearly opposite the proposed development. It is also increasingly used, I'm referring here again to City Road, as a through route to Sulham, Tidmarsh and the A340. Much of this part of City Road has parking restrictions, often ignored as there is seldom any enforcement. And we have a safer school scheme in its consultation phase, which is causing many complaints of inconsiderate parking and congestion. This development has just 8 car park spaces, the minimum required, but where will any visitors park? Unless parked illegally, it will have to be some distance away, causing yet more congestion on the very busy City Road. I also note that the applicant, despite previous refusals, has not engaged with local residents or their representatives to seek to overcome past and present issues that might have led to a less contentious application had this happened. So in summary, residents have expressed concerns to me of loss of green space, overlooked properties, loss of sunlight, loss of amenity space, flood risks, antisocial behaviour, parking and traffic issues, and a history of previous refusals and failed appeals. I urge councillors to think very carefully, as I will, in deciding on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Members, any questions? Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Taylor, you mentioned another school street scheme in consultation at the moment. Can you clarify for me which school that relates to, and if it's successful and is implemented, what roads will be affected, please?
Okay, it's Springfield School, which is situated in Barton Road. And Barton Road is a road that kind of loops round. It starts in City Road, loops round back into City Road. Currently, Barton Road is closed to traffic at school opening times and school closing times. It's currently in a consultation period, which I think finishes around the end of this year, at which point it will be determined whether the scheme remains in place, in which case Barton Road would remain closed at those times, in the future, and there would probably be enforcement cameras put in place at that point as well.
Yep.
Sorry, can you clarify what you mean by close to traffic? So it's close to traffic during what hours and under what conditions?
I'm going to struggle. I think it's around, I'm guessing here, I think it may be around from 8:30 till about sort of 9:15 or thereabouts, and 3 o'clock, maybe to 3:45 in the afternoon or thereabouts. I mean, if anyone here can correct that. But they're longer than that. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, we can't take additional information from the floor, Councillor Taylor, sorry. Any other questions? Councillor Kander?
Just a point of clarification. So basically the school thing is already in place and it's whether or not it becomes permanent at the end of the year.
That is correct, yes. So it's currently running, the trial period I started back in early June. It's going to run for 6 months. And at the end of that, a further decision will need to be made as to whether the scheme continues.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no further questions. Thank you very much indeed. Members, I'd invite you to seek clarification questions to officers, please, if there are any to be asked. Well, Councillor Full.
Thank you, Councillor Kander. What I hear you saying there is that I'm conscientious. Thank you. So officers, thank you very much for your presentations this evening. I do have a small handful of questions. I noticed within the pack that we haven't had a response from TVP. I wonder why we haven't had a response from TVP, given that it's known to be a bit of a challenging area, and I thought that TVP would have responded to something like this.
Jill. Thank you, Councillor Poole. I'm afraid that the consultation arrangements for Thames Valley Police are limited to what they can resource a consultation response for, and that's larger sites for major development, not small-scale developments like this one.
Thank you, Mr. Till. Through you, Chair?
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So I think this is one for highways. So at the site visit, I noticed that the proposed entrance and exit is almost directly opposite another road, another access to a street. And I'm currently trying to find it now on Google Maps, and I think it's called Brian Dowding Court. Is that right? Wonderful. What is Highways' position on that in terms of safety and turning and moving and navigating around parked cars?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no concerns at all. It's quite a normal practice to have access roads opposite each other in state roads. So no concerns.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. There's been a few comments tonight, and I don't wish to take any pleasure away from Councillor Mays, who I know is somewhat of a savant of knowledge when it comes to waterways within the district. As a former Tilehurst resident, I am aware that there are some rather significant constraints with regards to clean and waste water. And I can't help but ping in the back of my mind the concerns raised by residents about impact to, and I'm sure Councillor Mays will correct me here, the certain pipeworks with bitumen and they're known to failing. I'm increasingly mindful of the number of properties that seem to have been added into the area and adding concerns to potential sewerage overflows in the area, and I'd like to hear the officers appease my mind, please.
Charles, one for you.
Yeah, we did consult Thames Water on the application, and they haven't responded. We can't require them to respond to an application. However, the developers will need their consent to connect into the system, and that will be a separate consent outside of the planning application process. So at the moment, we have to proceed on the basis that there is no objection from them because they haven't commented. And our records don't show any details of surface water flooding at the site.
Okay, one more.
Just one more. Oh, Chair, you flirt. So with regards to the school scheme that's presently in trial on Barton Road, after seeing some of the school schemes that are in operation around other areas of Tilehurst, I am aware that people park further afield and then walk through. I'm wondering what sort of impact has been modelled with regards to where parents will be and may be parking, particularly concerning around City Road, and how, if that school scheme is then adopted, what impact that new adoption would have on the highways planning for this application.
Yeah, if I may.
Dowding, yeah.
Yeah. The school streets, yes, we are monitoring the parking in that area. It's still in the consultation. It's experimental scheme at the moment. The parking restrictions, which are currently along City Road, more or less prevent legal parking outside this site anyway. Therefore, the school streets scheme really doesn't bear any pressure on this development. This development is not likely to cause any problems for the school street because legal parking along there, it would be permitted anyway. You've got the access, so you shouldn't, in theory, park across the access, but if people are being irresponsible parking across it, that is dealt with by other legislation. And there are already restrictions during the busiest times of the day when the school streets is at its, its most busy. It really, I think school street scheme is a little bit of a red herring for this development, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. If you've got any more, I'm going to come back to you. Councillor Mays, I had your hand, I think, next.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is basically for the roofing of the structures. We're talking about the 4 houses, and I don't see any reference to solar panels on the roof. Can the council reply to those 2 points? One is the zinc, and the other is the solar panels on the roof, which are not mentioned as far as I can see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, the materials proposed are zinc. We have got a condition asking for a more detailed specification of the material, so the colour and more the size of the sheeting, and that will be covered by conditions. In terms of the solar panels, none have been proposed on the application as it stands and as it's presented to us at this stage. There are conditions asking for further details to ensure that the development meets sustainability standards. And so as part of that condition, there may be a proposal for solar panels as part of that. But at this moment, that's pure speculation on my behalf.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, basically it confirms that there aren't any shown at the moment.
All right, thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Probably one for Mr. Dowding. Putting to one side my own personal views over whether the school street scheme is a red herring or not. If it's a known problem, it's a known problem. I don't think it's necessarily straightforward as that. Putting that to one side, it is possible to park on City Road after 6 p.m. So people can legally park there between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. Monday to Friday. So vehicles can obviously park on that section of the road, whether they're doing it legally or illegally. So I guess what I'm seeking is a little bit of clarification on what modelling the highways team have done to look at the impact of this development on what is already a known issue. And obviously we've had contributors come here tonight. They've mentioned the issue with the schools and the school streets and congestion and all the rest of it. These are issues which were foreseeable, and I'm sure the highways team would have anticipated them. The sum total of the contribution in the report that we've got in front of us is 2 lines long, simply stating that highways haven't raised any objections based on the amount of traffic. I don't think that's enough information to satisfy me. So I'm looking for some assurance really on what traffic modelling has actually been done that's relevant to this application, please.
Mr. Dowding.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, every development which we look at is TRIX. TRIX is a national database of movements which are generated by housing development. So a particular type of house or a particular type of dwelling or even a business will generate a number of movements. Now, depending on where that is within the country, depends on how many movements that would be. So for this area, we would have, if needed, we would have had a look at TRIX to see what TRIX would have specified as being the number of vehicles that would be generated at a peak time from this development. For a development such as this in this area, you'd be looking at 0.6 vehicles per peak hour that would be coming out. So for properties, 0.6 vehicles per property, you're talking under 3 vehicles in a peak hour that would be coming out of this site. There'd be even less going into that site in the peak hour. So that's in the morning. In the evening, it's a very similar figure, but obviously it's in reverse because people will be coming home. You also look at what you might have at the lunchtime, because obviously some people may wish to go home at lunch. So you are looking at, in peak periods, so the morning peak, the lunch peak, and the afternoon peak or evening peak, a range of about 0.6 vehicles per dwelling for this type of dwelling in this location in this part of the country. So you are talking a peak of around 3 cars in that hour. The rest of the properties will then, the rest of the vehicle movements would then be spread over the rest of the day. So when you consider that 3 vehicles in the peak hour on a road which has between 1,000 and 1,500 car movements a day, the percentages therefore are quite small in terms of what this development will produce in congestion or additional traffic at this point. So that's how we've made our determination of how the impact is of this development upon the existing road network.
Thank you. Okay with that? Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. So that deals with the numbers. One of the earlier contributors mentioned the NPPF, and I think it was para 116, don't quote me on that, I haven't got it in front of me, relating to highway safety and the impact on the highway. Is that something that the council has considered in the context of where these entry and exit points would be sited, with junctions opposite, with commercial premises nearby, with all of the issues that we've discussed, the nearby schools?
Certainly, yes, because one of the things that would be looked at is whether or not the visibility displays are appropriate for that road, for the speed of the road. Now, the speed of that road has been recorded as an 85th percentile, i.e. 85% of the traffic that's going on that road, as around 24.1 miles per hour. The average is a little bit less than that. It's about 22 miles an hour. So we would have looked at the sight lines. We would have looked at the vehicle volume. You would have looked at the access. Obviously, the access is serving 4 dwellings. You've got a single point for in and out. We would have looked at what features are there in terms of what roadside features. Is there anything which would cause a distraction? The bus stop is being removed. It's no longer a valid bus stop. The access has been moved to increase the visibility coming out of there. You say about additional accesses adjacent, opposite, that's all considered, yes. So again, it's down to the size and the number of vehicles going in and out of that site.
Okay. Go on.
Sorry, Councillor Poole got 3. Can I,
Yeah, of course.
can I have a third? Thank you. Last one, I promise. Again, to you, Mr Dowding. The removal of the bus stop, there's obviously a cost and a logistical effort associated with that. Presumably they're costs that will be scooped up by the applicant?
Yes, it's a condition on the planning application that they have to do the necessary works to remove that bus stop as it's redundant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, did you want to raise the issues that you raised earlier?
Yeah, I'll come back to that question. So I'm referring to page 2 of the update report. Actually, it's numbered as page 2, and it's the final bullet point on that page, which starts off thirdly restricted from public access. And it refers to maintenance being carried out periodically in accordance with the habitat management plan. It was just point of clarity, who would actually who would be carrying out that maintenance? Or has that not been decided yet?
Mr. Till?
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, that is part of the purpose of the Section 106 agreement, to secure in legal terms the binding details by which the maintenance would be carried out. And that's in conjunction with the habitat management plan habitat management and maintenance plan even, that is directed purely to secure the biodiversity net gain. And a point that I should be clear on is that that would be separate from any maintenance of that space as open space, because there is particular maintenance as a maintenance regime that is required to secure that biodiversity net gain continues to secure viable ecological habitat. So that is a particular ecological requirement that is in surplus to any requirement if that land was secured as a publicly accessible open space as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Till. Well done. Nice. Does that answer your question, Mr. Councillor Taylor? You think so? Okay. Councillor Kander.
So a couple of questions. First of all, just to pick up from Mr. Till's point, just a point of clarification. Are you saying therefore that if they take the option that it is amenity land, with or without a gate or what have you, it needs to be maintained in 2 ways? One is the biodiversity maintenance and also standard amenity land maintenance.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, that's correct. The two would have to a certain degree coincide, because the land maintenance couldn't, for example, destroy habitat land within the site. But the two would be a separate undertaking, essentially. They may be undertaken by the same company, but that would be subject to being secured via the Habitats Management and Maintenance Plan and Section 106.
Thank you. Anything else?
Following on from that, then, one of my original questions was, because there was a suggestion potentially to consume that land within the gardens, but then would it still maintain its biodiversity appeal or not?
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, many of you won't remember the struggles that we had in respect of the Floral Way development in Thatcham, where habitat land back in the late 90s was secured as part of garden spaces. Some of you will.
Some will, clearly.
But the enlightened position on this is that if you sell off a piece of land as part of residential curtilage, then people will treat it as garden space, and it will come under threat for development into garden space. And BNG land cannot be treated in the same way as garden space. That won't secure habitats, etc. So that land has to remain separate for the purpose of providing sufficient BNG offset for this site, and it cannot be sold into private residential curtilage. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yep.
Further on that piece of land, because as I understand at the moment, it's fenced and not used. So it's technically not amenity land because it's privately owned as well. So whether it's been used as amenity land or not beforehand is kind of irrelevant if it's been done unofficially, I guess. Could the option be that just that they fence it and leave it?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Kander, that's actually very insightful and probably a good point for me to mention that abandonment is a concept in planning now. In 2006, that land ceased to be maintained by the parish council, and that was leased to the parish council prior to 2006. That's 19 years ago, and 15 years as a rule of thumb line for abandonment of an existing use in planning terms is common. So really, from your officer's position, we'd be looking at any former amenity use of this land having been abandoned. In terms of the securing of that land to provide public open space, well, it's your officer's view that we take that offer with some caution. Now, we've questioned our own open space officers on whether they would wish to take on management and maintenance of that land, but they haven't responded to us. And in my experience, that piece of land is too small for the council to have an interest in. The parish council have reserved their position pending the outcome of this planning application, so I can't preempt that. And after that, it comes to whether it would be viable on the part of the developer for a maintenance company to take it on, with the associated cost being presumably tracked back to the residents of the developments for that maintenance company. So that's why officers are promoting a cascade mechanism within the Section 106 agreement, that the land is first of all offered to the parish council, as the applicant explained. Then it would be considered whether it could be viably tendered out for management without imposing an undue financial burden on the future residents. And the final option, which may have some planning benefit and members may wish to consider in terms of whether they'd wish to instruct that we alter the heads of terms on this, is that the land is gated off. And I take on board members' concerns regarding, in particular, antisocial behaviour. And what often happens with leftover pieces of open space, like this piece of proposed land that is to be left open, and also that management arrangements could be extremely costly in the event that the land's gated and that gate has to be opened every morning and shut every evening, which I think would be a reasonable security provision. So members may wish to consider whether the heads of terms could do with looking at, for example, whether the parish council are offered that land, and after that, the proposal is to close the land off apart from for maintenance purposes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay with that, Councillor Kander?
Still more.
Still more. Go on. Another one. Go on.
It was a question around Thames Water. I know it was mentioned before, and we have no way to compel, but I sense an unease for us to potentially agree to this on the basis that Thames Water have taken no responsibility whatsoever to come back to us. And is there a way in which we can either compel them or to delay this or something like that? I don't know how that works.
Mr. Till?
Thank you, Chairman. Members, Thames Water are the statutory undertaker to ensure that capacity for the network to absorb additional foul water is suitably accommodated. They were consulted on this application, and they have a statutory duty, if they wish to make comments, to reply within 21 days of the application being made. The NPPF states that we should not delay determination of applications, and indeed there's been a written ministerial statement recently on the fact that consultee late responses very often delay determination of applications and therefore delay development coming forward. So the planning policy and guidance, and in fact a written ministerial statement, directs the local planning authority to make a reasonable judgment in the case of absent consultation responses. And as I say, this is the duty of Thames Water as a statutory undertaker. Members can be reassured somewhat by the fact that Thames Water will have to agree any additional foul water flow into the system, and they will have to agree that in terms of the system operating at sufficient capacity for that foul water to be taken in. So the process doesn't simply stop with this planning application. The developer then needs to seek the acceptance of Thames Water before they connect to foul water drainage. Really, that's the best that I can say on this. It's your officer's strong recommendation that you reach a determination in the absence of Thames Water's comments, and that those comments, by virtue of their silence, are taken to raise no objection to the development and its proposed connection to the foul water infrastructure. And your alternative is to defer the application, but it's also your officer's recommendation to note that that would be contrary to the guidance in the WMS. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Till. Last one, Mr. Kander.
I just wanted to know whether or not we had actually checked whether there was a TPO in place for those trees that got removed.
Ms. Cutts?
There was no TPO.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice and succinct. Councillor Reid?
Thank you. Chair, I wonder if I can just go for one final point of the heads of terms, just for clarification, as I'm not experienced as many of my fellow councillors on this committee. Obviously, I am a little bit concerned about hearing residents' concerns of antisocial behaviour. I've one similar in my ward where we get antisocial behaviour, children throwing rocks and various other bits and pieces. And the unfortunate thing is the management company has not been maintaining. In fact, there's alluded that the management company went bust actually, and trees died when they should have been watered, etc., etc. And it's caused significant issues around that. So the longevity of a particular management company, even though they can be replaced, having also paying maintenance fees for various other things aren't as necessarily as attendant to the duties that they're meant to have. Sometimes you can be lucky, sometimes you can be quite unlucky. I'm just wondering whether the option, and I'm not that keen, to be honest, on hearing about closing it off because kids go over fences, having been a child myself. Can't say I was particularly well behaved, and it was if I saw a fence and a bit of closed land, I would go over it. Is there an option to actually offset biodiversity just with a management scheme that is administered nationally or locally, not necessarily attached with that piece of land that's being offered? And therefore the gardens can be extended because people tend to look after their gardens and protect them well and don't allow antisocial behaviour in them.
Okay, Mr. Till, would you like that one?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, there was a bit to unpack there, Councillor Reid. Thank you. First of all, I echo your misgivings in terms of the longevity of management companies. As a former enforcement officer, it was one of my frequent flyer requests was to understand why management of pieces of open space around the district had ceased. Indeed, in terms of management of public open space, that is a risk that I would ask members to consider. In terms of the open space proposed and its biodiversity net gain value, however, That is a slightly different situation. The applicant has proposed that site as a biodiversity net gain site, and it is not the business of the local planning authority to rewrite the planning application for the applicant. So yes, there are arrangements they could potentially take up for offsetting elsewhere, but in this case, they've chosen not to do so. Now, in terms of surety on management of biodiversity net gain space, the situation is somewhat different. The management plan for that space would be detailed. It would involve details of redundancy measures to ensure that maintenance took place to the degree that was required for BNG. And I'm advised by my colleague, Mrs. Cutts, for a period of 30 years. So the level of restriction in terms of ensuring biodiversity net gain is maintained is considerably higher than and taken as a considerably higher order, because it's actually a matter of separate legislation than the matter of public open space maintenance. So members, my advice to you was that you can be reassured in the case that that space was left open for biodiversity net gain. I share Councillor Reid's misgivings somewhat in terms of public open space, but again, that has been held to be a reasonable position to open it up to a management and maintenance company should that be available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Pemberton, did you want to come back?
Yeah, and to Councillor Reid's point about management companies, I have strong misgivings about them as well. We've got two developments in my own ward, one that was completed a few years ago and one that's nearing completion, where there are public open space issues and the involvement of management companies. My question for Mr. Till is whether or not we as a committee have the discretion to just remove the second bullet point of the heads of terms for the 106. So we just say, actually, this committee does not approve of management companies getting involved in these kinds of issues. It's either West Berkshire Council or the local parish.
Bill?
Thank you, Chairman. I would suggest that the committee does have that discretion, but with the slight alteration of the concern that perhaps imposing a management responsibility on the residents of the proposed dwellings for what is a relatively small public open space that would provide relatively little public benefit might be a more politic position, if I may say so, Councillor Pemberton.
Ouch. Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just picking up on that point, because Councillor Pemberton mentioned West Berkshire Council, but since the original report was issued and the update report, the prospect of this being taken on by West Berkshire Council, and I'm referring to the, this piece of open space, West Berkshire, I think, have already withdrawn their option of taking on responsibility for this, unless I'm mistaken.
Who's got the detail on that?
Thank you, Chairman. From the perspective of your planners and the information that we have, we've asked the question of the open space team and they haven't answered that question. So at present, those discussions effectively remain open, but it is my advice that it is unlikely that the open space team would look to take this on. Should members instruct approval and preparation of a legal agreement, then officers will pose that question again to the open space team before cascading down to the parish.
Thank you. Okay, members, nobody was expecting the Spanish Inquisition, but we've had a lot of clarity dished out there. Hopefully it's helpful. I'd like, if we can now, please, to move into debate. if we can make sure that we're not repeating previous comments as best as possible. Who would like to open, please? Councillor Langford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a rather neat solution to what is a very unsightly and unpleasant piece of land. So it has my support. With regard to congestion and parking, well, and I take what Mr. Dowding mentioned. My interpretation was we're shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted on City Road. So I don't really see that that's an issue. And I'm glad to have had it scientifically proved to me by Mr. Dowding. With regard to flooding, well, we've got the problem of Thames Water, and I do accept that they need to step up to the mark. With regard to antisocial behaviour, I think this is a real problem and potential problem, and I would like to see the ownership of that land go to the owners of the properties, perhaps with some kind of caveat that it becomes a biodiversity area, that piece of area, or part of their gardens. I don't really mind. It's such a small piece of land that I'm quite sure West Berkshire Council won't want. And I'm also equally sure that if I was on the parish council of Tilehurst, I wouldn't want either, because it's a huge cost. And there is a need for some 2-bedroom properties for single people and couples. So this, from my point of view, this development has my support. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Reid.
I think I'd have to agree with Councillor Langford on that space. I think it is way too small to be of benefit really to the community as a community space. The community, I think, has made a clear statement. Actually, looking on Google Maps, there seems to be lots of other community space, but the attraction of antisocial behaviour, if it was close bordered off, would be too much. Gating would be a significant cost. It does worry me, though, if that was to be retained, but the cost was to be picked up by the residents. I think that would be unfortunate, because those houses look like they are perfect for small, young start families, and to put additional costs, maintenance costs on those, I think would probably be unreasonable for us to impose that on those residents. I personally think there needs to be another solution, whatever that needs to be, for the biodiversity net gain, and that space to be consumed in the gardens, because residents look after the gardens.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, short and sweet from me. I would agree with pretty much all of what both contributors have said so far. It is a small piece of land at the back. I fully understand why West Berkshire Council wouldn't want anything to do with it. I fully understand that there is a cost implication from the local parish's perspective if they were to look after the maintenance as well. So I really don't want to find myself in a space where we're getting ourselves in a knot over this particular piece of space. But it wouldn't be right for me to say that I'm not concerned, and it's not a political point in terms of where I stand on management companies. I'm simply not prepared to say to future residents of these dwellings, oh, there's going to be some management charges here, but I can't tell you what they are. You'll have to wait and see. I've seen it in my ward, and it's happened across the district in other places as well. So in terms of the principle of this development, I support it. I think leaving the entirety of this site as it is not a good idea. We desperately need houses, but I've got concerns. I'm not in a position to propose anything, and I'd be extremely interested to hear what other members have got to say as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've all kind of lifted the bonnet on this and had a real round and a real poke. And I have to say that I'm not in favour of this application, but I'm struggling to find anything that I could lodge a refusal over. I hear Councillor Pemberton's concerns with management companies. I know he loves them very much. And I also hear that we do need housing. We do need suitable housing for small young families. I do have a concern that the area at the bottom of the garden, if that is then left to the residents to manage, I mean, I remember what it was like when I do have young children, but when my children were even younger, the possibility of sitting outside in a garden would be lovely, but then managing it myself, it became too much. And I am concerned that if that space is unmanaged or left to the residents of those properties, then it becomes, well, it doesn't become anything. It's not maintained. And I also believe that having a management company in there to do that makes it then non-cost viable. So I don't know what we do with that. I don't know what we do with that. I'm very similar to Councillor Pemberton, not in a position to propose, but I wouldn't be supportive of this as it stands at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cotton.
I equally feel that, this hinges on that small patch of land behind it. It's really not viable. It's not viable for West Berkshire. It's probably not viable. I won't presume to tell the parish council what they can and can't afford, but it would be quite expensive. Sending somebody around to lock it is also going to be, we wanted to close down a park in Thatcham overnight, and the cost was eye-watering to get somebody just to go out and lock that down. It's a little bit late, and maybe I should have come up with this idea earlier, but it's only because of the debate can't we ask the developer to make a contribution of £100,000, say? Oh, sorry, facetious, a large amount of money, several thousand or whatever, towards sustainability and viability in another area, and just include these in the gardens. It's not viable to have that. I just feel that, through you, Chairman, is that too late to propose a change in condition? Because I think it gets us out of a problem area.
I don't think it's too late to put it forward as a condition. We quite often come up with conditions during debate. So I think we're safe on that. Councillor Mays.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Looking at the plan and what we've discussed recently, I cannot support this design as it stands. I think that the houses could be to the south, and incorporate this piece of land that we're talking about into their gardens better if the houses were moved on the plan that I'm looking at from where they are now to the left, which I think will probably be to the southwest. We actually might also avoid the oversight looking on the houses in City Road. I think a redesign is probably desirable. I would certainly want to see the aluminium roofs, the material of those materials, including solar panels on the roofs. So that would be my two major objections to the design as it currently stands.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kander.
Thank you. So I guess we always get the difficult ones here, and again, sometimes you have to take a step back, and we can only judge this on the merits of the planning application. So take on board my colleague Councillor Mays' comments, but I'm not sure that in terms of what he's asking for means that there's a contravention of those planning restrictions. There is a requirement anyway to specify the materials and the design of the roof. But indeed. So from that perspective, I understand your points, but I'm not sure there's something that we can use to object against. I also understand the local residents issues, having lived through some of that myself, and also had my own planning applications in the past reduced in size because of light and overseeing and what have you. But if all of those conditions are met, whilst it's unfortunate these things may not turn out as bad as you think in oftentimes, and certainly the traffic and what have you, I think, as Councillor Langford said, is already, or somebody said, the horse has already bolted, right? There are things we can do as a council overall in long term, such as road markings and stuff like that, which look well worn on that road for a start. But apart from that, when I looked on Google Maps, so from my perspective, I'm in agreement of this proposal, but the big issue, and part of me does feel that maybe this shouldn't have even come to committee yet, because the issue is the land, the spare little bit of land. Giving us options, which none of them are palatable, was always going to be an issue. Taking on board Councillor Cotham's point, and I think we mentioned it before with Mr. Teal, I know we can't tell the applicant what to do with regards to their design, but we could perhaps put a condition that says that we can't approve this until there is a resolution on that land, and our suggestion on that land is to do maybe an external BNG payment somewhere and then consume that land, and that gets rid of all the problems.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave that with officers to consider while I come to Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just picking up on Councillor Canda's last point, I think it already is the case that this, even if we approve this application, it would be subject to the agreement of the Section 106 agreement that concerns the land. And if that didn't happen, the application would have to be would be refused.
My point is that the options in the 106 are not palatable or work commercially.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, this is a very tricky one, but my inclination is to oppose this application, and for quite a number of different reasons. And I don't want to go on too much, so I'll probably just focus on a few of them. Firstly, I think the objections that some of the residents are given in terms of loss of sunlight being overlooked. I mean, the report says that these are not significant issues, but there is an acknowledgement in the report that they are nonetheless issues, though not significant ones. And I think there's probably quite a fine balance between what's significant and what isn't significant. I'm veering towards believing this is based on the conversations I've had with some of these residents, that this is a significant issue for them in terms of the loss of sunlight and the fact that their houses would be overlooked. In terms of the need, these are 4 houses. I agree, housing is important. I do accept that whilst these are not affordable houses, as I understand it, they are probably at the lower end of the price range. 2-bedroom houses, they are important. However, I mean, this ward is looking at a number of other potential housing applications rather more significant than this one. There are also other applications. I'll give you an example. There's an application at Pinsent's Manor Hotel, which was approved, I think, about 3 years ago, and where there has not been any move so far to actually getting that building underway. That's 50 to 60 housing units. So, so I think we need to focus on where we can get more housing. And I'm not sure that I accept the argument that, although it's only 4, it's important that we approve it because we need some housing almost wherever it is.
Mindful that we can only deal with the application in front of us.
I agree with that. I'm just painting a wider picture so that people are aware of it. I won't name the developments, but it's more than one. I can think of several developments that could be coming up in this area. Also, the issues around the traffic and particularly the flooding. I'm very worried about the impact of flooding and the fact that Thames Water haven't responded. And again, that is another reason why I would feel inclined to oppose this, because we haven't heard from Thames Water on this. And again, the impact of the school street scheme and the traffic and we're going to be losing parking spaces because of this entrance area into these 4 properties. Those spaces, although it is restricted at certain times, those cars are going to be parked further down somewhere else in City Road, and the whole area, I think, just becomes more and more congested. So I haven't finally made up my mind, but I think I'm veering towards opposing this application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Reid, you want to come back in?
Councillor Taylor makes a very good point about the light, actually, and that does concern me. I'm just looking on the map. I think it's roughly about the corner, the sort of southeast corner of 5 meters from their garden. That's not a lot of distance. You know, I'd be happier if it was 8 or 10 meters, considering that they'll get a longer season to get some sunlight in their garden, remembering that the sun doesn't really go hugely overhead in late autumn, early spring, and obviously not much at all in winter. So I am concerned for the residents of number 2 that they're going to lose some amenity of light, especially in the evenings. And obviously the number 187 as well is going to lose light at an earlier time in the day as well, as the sun swings around from the south to the west. So they'll be losing amenity again of light into their back garden.
And as I understand it, 187 is the applicant. Councillor Pemberton.
Yes. So I hear Councillor Taylor and Councillor Reid's concerns. I share most, if not all of them, if I'm honest with you. I'm in favour of the principle of this development, not because I'm disagreeing with you, but because I've read the report and I'm going to take the officer's guidance. And if they say to me it fits with regulations and criteria and there's no overlooking, there's always going to be some overlooking. You can't avoid it in a densely populated urban area like this. You've heard my concerns about the highways. I've grilled poor Mr. Dowding. You know, he's given me the answers. I didn't necessarily like them, but that's his professional opinion. I've kind of got to go with that. So I think if we're going to be very, very, very careful, if we're going to go down the road of refusing that on things like highways, valid point, overlooking, valid point, Thames Water, should they have responded? Of course they should, but we can't make them respond. And I think if we're going to start going down that road, this has got appeal written all over it. So I would urge members to bear that in mind. If you want a proposal, I would be happy to suggest that committee defers this application so that there's an opportunity for West Berkshire Council and the parish to determine whether an agreement can be reached between themselves as to who on earth is going to look after this green open space.
Okay, we have a proposal. Did you want to come in or did you want a second?
Second proposal.
You want to second that proposal?
No.
You want a different proposal, right? So we're going to need to deal with that one first. Do we have a seconder for? We do have a seconder, Councillor Reid. We're going to need to vote on that one first. Members all in favour of deferral? We have 3 against. We have 4, so that has been refused. That's been turned down. Councillor Candy, you had a counter proposal?
Well, it was the one I mentioned earlier, which was we don't defer and we either accept or decline on the basis that they do something else with regards to BNG and the amenity land problem goes away.
Okay, let me
however that's worded.
Thank you. Let me come to Councillor. I've just promoted you, mate. Well, I say promoted, that might be an exaggeration. Could be going the wrong way. Just taking away years of experience. Mr. Till, do you believe and can you advise us on how strict we can be on the condition? Will it provide something? Can it provide something that will meet adequately?
I hope that I can go a little bit one further than that, actually, in terms of directly addressing the concerns that Councillor Canda's raised and a manner in which those could be proposed. So it would be possible for members to delegate back to officers to approve this application subject to a revised layout and alternative proposals for securing biodiversity net gain, or to refuse the application for poor layout that results in concerns that it will lead to an unacceptable impact in terms of antisocial behaviour and potentially neighbouring amenity, depending on what Councillor Canda's view on that is. That proposal to refuse would be enacted if alternative proposals for BNG methodology and layout cannot be brought forward and secured by officers in discussions with the applicant.
Councillor Kanda, your view on that? Does your proposal remain with that in mind? Do you feel that's strong enough as
I think so.
for your requirement?
Let me just summarise, because you said a lot there, and to use your words, there's a lot to unpack there. It sounds like we approve on the basis that they redesign, reconfigure and find a suitable mechanism for BNG, or we refuse on the basis that they don't.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and specifically that the grounds for refusal would relate to the current proposed layout is a poor quality layout that would result in concerns with antisocial behaviour.
So could we be more specific and say that they have to consume that land within their new designs?
Thank you, Chairman. You can certainly instruct officers that that's our starting point for discussions.
Okay.
Then I'm happy to propose that amendment.
I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Langford, thank you very much.
Sorry, it's probably me being slow. Which proposal are we voting on? Are we voting on approve on the basis of delegation or refusal on the basis of concerns over antisocial behaviour?
It's all one. It's all one. So it would be approved if it's dealt with, and refused if it's not dealt with, and it's officers' decision to do that, and we delegate to them with the ability to understand and define whether there is sufficient movement to meet members' requirement. Yeah. Okay. Does that? You happy with that as an explanation?
I am, Chairman. Thank you.
Something right, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, I'm just going to come back to something we were talking about earlier, and that was the possibility of adding a condition that there has to be a lockable gate. And I think is
that all part of it, Mr. Till?
Chairman, the resolution that is being put forward to the vote by Councillor Kanda would actually instruct officers to seek that the proposed BNG/amenity space was no longer a publicly accessible or BNG space, and that an alternative solution to provide BNG was provided. So omitting the public accessibility space from it and redesigning the layout to incorporate that space within the residents' gardens.
Thank you. And I've got Councillor Mays, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Cotton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, if we or the planners come up with a design which is better than the one that we currently with the two houses together, if we get the two houses more in line with the houses in Linden Close, or even move just one of them back, change the garden, that I think could solve the problem.
I think you're stepping into the realms of trying to fix the application for them rather than officers doing it. Well, which is exactly the same thing, Councillor Mace. If I'm honest, you're just using different words in the same order.
Yeah, with the redesign, I would go along with it.
Okay, I'm not sure that will fit, but we'll leave officers to make that decision when they make their communication. Councillor Cotton.
Yeah, just for clarification, that would be where money was presented to West Berkshire or whoever to actually put it into a fund to actually make other areas of Tilehurst biodiverse.
Or suitably find something and do it themselves, I suspect, but either or, Mr. Till.
Excuse me. Yeah. What about it? Can I say something?
Yeah, can I just let him come back on that first and then I'll come to you?
Well.
Or is it in relation to
He
that?
might not need to if I say what.
Okay, you carry on first.
Thank you. They are already giving us sills. These are low-cost houses for low-cost money to build in the first place. And we need low-cost houses. So if you ask them to pay a sill, which we are asking them to do, surely that would cover that cost.
Chairman, I don't think there would be an extra cost because there's already cost inherent in what we're looking at the moment for a management fee or to the company and things like that. In fact, so thank you, but thank you for that point.
Thank you. Let's Mr. Till come in on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think members, there's a few things that I need to touch on there. The first being that the SIL is an entirely separate regime from biodiversity net gain. Biodiversity net gain is a requirement over and above the monies paid in community infrastructure levy, and it's been legislated from the middle of last year. The driving purpose behind that is the wider concern of encouraging an increase in ecology and habitats for biodiversity. In terms of the alternatives that are available, then the alternatives come to a cascade matrix for making off-site contributions to sites that are provided in various different areas to improve biodiversity net gain in those areas. So it's an off-site contribution is the likely outcome in these terms. And in terms of cost to the developer, off-site contribution in the biodiversity net gain cascade is more expensive than providing on-site biodiversity net gain. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Till. Members, we have a proposal. I'm not sure I'm even brave enough to try and summarise what it might be. So I might look to my right again to do that to make sure it's absolutely accurate. But this is for 25/00140 FUL for the erection of 4 residential dwellings comprising of 4 2-bedroom semi-detaches with the additional conditions as laid out and
to delegate to officers that the application be approved in the event that officers can secure an alternative layout that omits the public open space and biodiversity net gain area from the south of the site, and that secures biodiversity net gain via alternative provision, or in the event that officers are unable to secure that in discussions with the applicant, that the application is refused on the grounds of a poor quality layout that would result in concern that it would lead to an unacceptable increase in antisocial behaviour and fear of antisocial behaviour.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why he's the professional. Can I have hands in favour of the proposal, please? Oh, Councillor Langford, second. Sure, she was in very quick with her second in hand. Members, those 4, please show of hands. Thank you. And those against? And I'm going to abstain because it's too close to my heart because I used to live and play in the same place. No, in the 70s. It was a long time ago and it was wonderful. I believe, therefore, we have approval. Officers, good luck with the work which is now coming for you. The application has been approved subject to the list of conditions as laid out by Mr. Till. Thank you very much for your engagement. Thank you very much for your questioning. Enjoy the rest of the evening. And I'll have a word with Mr. Rackrow about actually chairing his next one because I think he's long overdue. Thank you.